Hello, we made a giant T-Rex.
And we covered it in flamingos.
This isn't the Christmas decoration the neighborhood wanted.
But it's the Christmas decoration this year deserves.
So we built this giant T-Rex to celebrate the birth of the Lord.
And some people driving by might think it's evil. What do you think? We're joining the Empire or something?
We have cookies!
So what constitutes a Christmas decoration?
Hey, it's your house. You can decorate for the holidays any way you want. You know, too many people argue what does and does not constitute Christmas decorations. So why flamingos? Well, it's because the Google T-Rex got flamingoed, plus there's a webcomic, and we thought it was funny, and we know that no one in our neighborhood knows what it means, which is also funny.
Where do you find plans for a giant dinosaur for your front yard? You don't, but you find a smaller one on Instructables.
We'll link it below, but here's the webpage with the downloadable PDFs for the design. And fortunately for us, one of our buddies had access to a very similar dinosaur that had been built as a dragon. This became our engineering model.
While this dinosaur is charming and I'm sure his mom loves him, we wanted something bigger for the yard. So we upscaled it about twice the size.
I'm 6 feet tall. Check this out. It's really big. To transfer the design from the computer to the plywood, we're going to use this projector and shine it on the plywood.
We turned our wood shop into a projection room and it worked great.
Then we're going to use these high-tech Sharpies to draw out the design.
Trace, not draw. We're tracing the bones onto the plywood.
Once we traced all these pieces onto the plywood, we handed them off to the saw brigade, so that way Carl can actually have bones and structure and, the rest of him.
Why do we call him Carl? Well, that's his name in the comics, so we figured we'd just use the same name. But doubling Carl's size required 8 sheets of plywood, so we had a lot of tracing and a lot of cutting ahead of us. A bunch of co-workers, most of whom are in my bubble, came over to help out, so we had a large team this time. The woodshop team, otherwise known as the cool kids, traced the upscaled dinosaur bones onto the plywood, and the outside team, called the sweating team, cut all the parts to fit together to make a giant dinosaur. Here's the names of all those people who helped. And now that we've done it, we can confirm that it requires a large number of people to build an extinct dinosaur. Also pizza. 3/4 inch plywood was used for the legs and tail, the things that supported weight, and 1/2 inch plywood for the lighter weight ribs and head. Inside the wood shop, the cool kids were playing 80s rock and having a great time. Outside, the saw brigade cut some really big dinosaur bones. We ended up with more than 40 giant dinosaur bones scattered throughout the yard. And the wood shop ended up looking like some kind of weird archaeological cave or something. After all the dino bones were cut, I ran them through the router to round off the top and bottom of each bone. This was an effort to stop dino splinters. It mostly worked.
Seven people, 3 hours, a lot of plywood being cut. They're finishing up the notching outside right now. We're about to put it together to see if it fits.
We thought the upscale dinosaur would fit together as easily as the one inside had. The structure was too wobbly, so we made a couple of changes and tried it a second time. The problem was that we had a loose hip structure that wobbled, so we took a break and took a group picture.
Okay, we got carried away by events and we didn't film us building this, but this was the problem. The hip wasn't strong. It was all these pieces slid together, and when we started putting weight, and this is like 400 pounds, once we start putting the weight on it, it started slipping around and the legs turned and it became unstable and it kept trying to fall over, which is not what you want at a 12-foot tall dinosaur. So we realized that we had to make the hips a lot stronger. So we tore this down, put it all together, we bolted it and we glued it with construction cement, and there's 4 pins holding each leg on each side. So it's really strong, and this isn't going to easily fall over now. So here's a couple of pictures. This is what we did.
We added reinforcing wood, bolts, and glue, and the finished product is stiff and strong, but also very heavy. It's about 60 pounds. But now we have solid hips.
It's time to paint.
Khalil mixed the dino paint,
He's a righteous dude.
and the team began painting the non-load-bearing pieces. This is untreated lumber because we're cheap, so we're putting 3 coats on each side to make it weatherproof.
The sun was incredibly rude and went away, so we set up some lighting and painted it dark.
This was one dedicated dinosaur team. They were absolutely committed to getting this dinosaur's ribs and skull painted and ready to go. A second team worked with the new and improved hip to set up the structure of the dinosaur. It worked, but at this point we started to stop traffic. Since this project was no longer a secret to the neighborhood, we just walked it out to the front yard where it's going to reside and set it up to see if it would work. It did. And it stopped even more traffic. With the structural problem solved, it was time to paint the rest of the dinosaur. These dinosaur bones were so large they filled up the double-car garage on one side and the single-car garage wood shop on the other. But when it was done, the exhausted team broke for the day and had dinner.
The next day.
We did more painting. We got to put 3 coats on each of these, so we had a lot of painting.
The next day.
We flipped everything over and painted the other side. Lots more paint.
The next day.
Now it's time to assemble the T-Rex for real. This is the 6th time we've assembled the T-Rex, and we've become exceedingly efficient at it. Actually, we're making it up as we go along because nobody's ever done this before. Turns out the bolts that we got were too short, so we had to go buy longer ones.
Time to add the flamingos. Doesn't that terrify you?
50 flamingos to be exact. They're all around the dinosaur and zip-tied to the sides to simulate what real flamingos would do if they ran into a T-Rex in the wild.
Carl needs eyes, but more importantly, everyone needs to see that he can see you. So, this is one of his eyes. Time to put it up. Let's go.
The 2 red eyes are mounted to the inside of Carl's skull. We realized as we were up on that ladder that we probably should have done this when it was on the ground, but we'll know better next year. Then 2 white floodlights are placed on the ground to illuminate Carl and the flamingos so that passerby can easily see the flamingo attack. This gives us a total of 4 lights for Carl and the flamingos.
There are 4 lights!
But then we added this sign and it has 50 lights on it, so now we have 54 lights. And during all this setup, friendly neighbors kept stopping to say hello and give us comments.
I like it.
Thanks.
That's sharp.
And then the neighborhood's social media started filling up with comments. Turns out they think this is pretty cool. This is only going to encourage us to continue to build weird things.
So there it is, the T-Rex. Behold its glory. Traffic is continuing to stop because people cannot believe what they are seeing in this suburban neighborhood.
Thanks to our patrons for helping us do stuff. You're responsible for stuff like this. There's a car stopping right now to stare at us. It's your fault. Thank you so much for helping us. Hey, this is the kind of stuff we build. It's really cool, isn't it? We have a lot more stuff like this, so check out our other videos.
If you haven't already, please subscribe. Maybe consider liking the video, commenting. We read them. But Whatever you decide to do, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.